Alright, so I'm bored and I have more shit on my mind, so why not record again? So today I want to go back into primarchs because, to be honest, I'm enjoying these sorts of discussions. Basically, I want to take each primarch and talk about how I would bring them back. And I think I'm going to probably do this in several videos because otherwise this could be an hour long. We'll see though. I could just get going and end up doing them all. I have no idea, basically. So this will either be a reasonably length video or it'll be an hour long. Depends on if I remember to stop myself. So we're going to start with Fulgrim because, well, I'll be real. He's going to be next. There's no two ways about it. So Fulgrim, he should come back on the Nihilist side because I think Angron should go over to Sanctus and fuck with Gilliman and the Silent King and all that. But Fulgrim should come back on the Nihilist side, and he should be one of the antagonists for the Lion trilogy of books that we're inevitably going to get in the vein of Dark Imperium. Fulgrim should be one of the main antagonists within those books for at least one of them. I don't know which one, but for at least one of them. The Lion should fight Fulgrim. Because, to me, he is the most... I think Fulgrim is the most interesting opponent for the Lion. Because, well... Gilliman probably had more motivation to want to fight Fulgrim again. Because revenge is an excellent motivator. But that only takes you so far as an interesting story goes. And I think the more interesting story is the Lion seeing Fulgrim having a chance to really react to what a demon Primarch is. And not just the wild berserker that is Angron. At least in theory. This should also involve Luthor, so realistically, I think Fulgrim should be probably more the antagonist. Luthor is like the goal of the book trilogy, like deal with Luthor, but I think the secondary thing should be Fulgrim. Since Gilliman's main threat is clearly going to be Tyranids, and yeah. So, let's do that. The Lion's main threat is basically the Emperor Children Legion reborn. Born anew. And he's fighting all those guys. Presumably. I would probably have this end in a draw. Like, just have Fulgrim and the Lion fighting a running war in Nihilus for a while. Because I think you can make that interesting as a clash. Also, you could see Fulgrim get frustrated because the Lion is not biting his bait at all. Which the Lion wouldn't. He would not bite that bait. At all. Which could make for fun back and forth, I think. Moving on. Next, let's talk Lehman. So, my idea is sort of the Tyranids are supposed to be the big villains of 10th, right? That's where we're going. So, the Tyranids are like, they're overrunning everything. The Tyranids, either you could have them actually get to Terra, though I don't think that's quite the time yet. Or, better idea, you have them reach Fenris. And basically do a devastation of Ball but Fenris. And at the end of it, Lehman Russ returns with whatever's up to the 13th Great Company that he has with him. And that turns the tide. Basically. Would be my idea. So it's Tyranid related. And Lehman Russ basically declares a great hunt on the Tyranids. So now the Space Wolves are like primary mission murder Tyranids. And of course, you would get another trilogy of books that's like The Great Wolf or whatever. Similar again to Dark Imperium. Yeah, I would do that for all of the loyal Primarchs. The Demon Primarchs, not so much. I think they're more villains. And their primary thing is now Russ is now holding the line against the Tyranids. And he is called all of basically any chapter who isn't helping Gilliman. Like any chapter who he doesn't care if they're his sons or someone else. He's calling any forces available to him. And it's basically like, we're going to drive the Tyranids out of this galaxy one way or another. That's his thing. And that's what Lehman should do. Drive the Tyranids from the galaxy by any means necessary. Because Lehman... And of course, Lehman can talk to Gilliman or whatever. And there can be some tension, or there can be no tension, doesn't matter. And maybe he learned the lions back. Bless me. Or maybe he doesn't. It doesn't really matter. The point is, you now have 3 Primarchs. One is focusing on the Gilliman focuses on the Pariah Nexus. Lehman focuses on the Tyranids. And the Lion is focused on Nihilus and driving back Chaos. So basically you got one Primarch focused on each threat. You kind of have an even balance. And it's still a 4-on-3 with the Primarchs for both sides. I'm very quickly going to touch on Valdor, because I feel like he would come back around the same time as by now. Valdor should come back, and his whole thing should be, no, I am going to defend the throne world. That is what I am going to do. And he goes off to do that. He sets up defenses on the throne world, and is basically trying to emulate Dorne. Almost trying to replace Dorne, but not really. Basically, my idea is that his thing is, we're going to lose. We are losing. There's no two ways about this. We are losing this war. All we're doing is delaying now. It is inevitable that one or more of the enemies of mankind are going to reach Terra sooner or later, and we need to be ready. So that's what he's doing. I know it's not the most interesting thing for Valdor, but it is, I think, what Valdor would do if he was brought back into the fold. Now, next we are going to talk Logar and by extension Torax, because I don't see one returning without the other in this situation. So basically, Logar would come out of his tower and he would basically rally an army. Rally a massive chaos army and essentially declare a crusade. As the Emperor's power is growing, he would declare a crusade to cleanse the galaxy of these Emperor-worshipping fools. And you would just have chaos fleets pouring out of the rift, pouring out of everywhere, and attacking everybody, and attacking the Imperium. Mainly the Imperium. You would have certain forces attacking other places, but primarily the Imperium. And at some point, Logar would appear, probably somewhere in Ultramar. Gilliman would fight him and would be nearly defeated, and that's when Corax would come in. He would fight with Logar, drive Logar back, and then Gilliman would convince Corax to rejoin the fold, as killing the traitorous brothers is a goal of his as well. Even though it's not really what the Emperor wants, it's what he feels is best. So that is how Korax has come in to rejoin the fold. And now Logar is, with Abaddon off in the Webway doing whatever it is Abaddon doing, because I think Abaddon stays there a while, Logar becomes essentially the leader of the Chaos Forces. Of the vast majority of the Chaos Forces within real space, so to speak. Now, after this, we go on to Perturabo and Rogel Dorn, though it's the other way around here. But again, I think that the one thing that makes Perturabo get up off his ass is if Rogel Dorn returns. So the idea that, once again, we go back to the Tyranids, because my primary focus is twofold. The Tyranids and Chaos. Those are the big threats. Everyone else is small fish in a big pond by comparison. The Tyranids get to Inuit because that's something they've been talking about for a while. And the Latwall declared to protect Inuit, and basically, again, devastation of ball style. Except this time Rogaldorn comes in. He has like something comes in and turns the tide. This very quickly word spread that Rogaldorn is back and is sort of leading a golden crusade against the forces, against the enemies of man. He's not focused on any one enemy, but he's trying to contain as many of the war fronts as he can. Basically, his whole thing is we're going to build a line of fortresses all along the border with the Great Rift. He believed the mistake was to rely on one world. He's not going to make that mistake again. That is Dorn's mindset now. This forces Perturabo out of hiding to fight Dorn. And those two would fight a running war of sieges and counter sieges and all this crap. And essentially that's what Dorn is doing. Yeah. And basically, those two are clashing. Perturabo has now summoned the full strength of the Iron Warriors to him, and it, as well as his allies in the Dark Mechanicus and his tentative alliance with Thastor, to attempt to kill Rogel Dorn for good. And that's how you bring those two back into the fold. Those two are fighting each other now. And that's what goes on there. Next, we're going to talk about Vulcan. Now, how you bring Vulcan back is very simple. The artifact thing is the real thing. They find the last artifact. Trazyn had the last artifact. This is Salamanders versus Necrons. The Salamanders attack Trazyn's vault. A bunch of chaotic shit happens. Trazyn would duel Tushan because, I don't know, cool fight. And Vulcan returns. And as Tushan grabs the last artifact, Vulcan returns. He smashes Trazyn in the side, and he's like, I have returned. And he goes to speak, and after hearing that Gilliman is the leader of the Imperium, he goes to speak to Gilliman, and he says, what do you need me to do? Where do you need me? And Gilliman sends him to Vigilus, basically. He says, the lion is on the Nihilist side. Go and help him. I want you to help Rogel. He is setting up a defensive line along the rift. Go and help him. So Vulcan joins up with Rogel because I like the idea of those two interacting, and is now assisting Rogel in setting up the defenses along the Great Rift. As the Lion, realizing that Nihilus is a lost cause, and they're only delaying the real purpose of holding it for long, of keeping it around as long as possible is to draw Chaos Forces away from Sanctus. That is the primary goal of the Lion now. It's not necessarily to take back Nihilus. He is very aware that is a lost cause without the warp travel. Without easy access to warp travel, that is a lost cause, and he knows it. His main goal is to keep as many of Chaos's forces focused on him as possible and to draw them away. Now, at this point, we're going to talk about the con, and we are going to cut into the webway. And to Vastor and Abaddon, who have now allied themselves with Fulgrim, who have now gained an alliance with Be'lakor and with a large contingent of Slaaneshi demons. Because they are going to attack Kamarog. At the same time, the White Scars a White Scar squad is busted into Kamarog and are now sort of fighting their way through Kamarog. And it is from their point of view that we basically see the fall of Kamarog. As Abaddon and his entire armada appear and they just start wrecking shit. Abaddon trashes Vec, tosses him off his tower. As hordes of Slaaneshi demons and Emperor's children, led by Be'lakor, pour through the streets and are murdering Dark Eldar left and right. And in this, the Khan, who had been basically imprisoned as Vec's personal pet, is broken loose, and he goes ham, killing Dark Eldar and Chaos Worshipper alike, cutting through them. And eventually he meets with Be'lakor. And he sees Be'lakor and he's like, I have so much pent-up anger right now. Get out of my way, demon. Or I will rip you into so many pieces. I am going to rip you into so many pieces, you absolute piece of garbage. And the Khan just fucking tears Be'lakor apart. Before leaving with his sons, and the Khan is back. And the Khan, he goes to Guilliman, they talk for a bit, and he basically tells Guilliman, look, I'm going to the Nihilus side, I'm going to help the Lion. That is where I am the most useful to you, is over there. Out in the fringes, hunting. That's what I'm good at. So he goes over there, and he starts drawing even more chaos attention over there, because now there's 2 loyalist primarchs. And he goes after Fulgrim, specifically. And he starts targeting Fulgrim with very specific intent to kill. Like, he wants Fulgrim's head on a pike. And at this point, Abaddon is back in the galaxy. And Abaddon starts working. He meets with Logar. And those 2 are kind of now co-leading the war efforts for Chaos, essentially. Like, Abaddon is the true leader, but Logar is like the figurehead holding it all together. Angron is currently rampaging through Ultramar. Guilliman is doing his best to contain him. Lehman is fighting Tyranids and is trying his best to keep them from reaching Terra. Rogaldorn building his massive line of fortress world. The Lion and the Khan and Vulcan are building fortresses. And Vulcan is also taking to killing orcs wherever he can find, wherever they show, to fighting the orcs pretty heavily. And him and Gazgul actually meet and they would clash at some point. Because I like the idea of Vulcan seeing Gazgul and being like, oh, hell no, not again. And trying to kill him. Because he sees what Gazgul could become. Because he's seen it before. And then you have the Lion and the Khan on the Nihilus side. They're wrecking chaos shit. Fulgrim is sort of holding it, but not really. And they're killing chaos left and right. And yeah, that's the Primarchs for you, basically. That's what I would do. After that, personally, I would resurrect Conrad Cursed. I would. And I would use the the Eldar Stone thing to do it. He would come back, and that would bring back the Night Lords. I'd also bring back Sevatar as a Demon Prince, because I think that's cool. Personally, I like that idea of Sevatar is still alive, but he's a Demon Prince, and he's murdering shit. And he come back, and those two take over the Night Lord fleet and their wrecking shop. This would happen around the time the Night Lords... Sevatar would lead the Night Lords in destroying that craft world that they are apparently targeting. And then, if there is Alpharius and or Omegon still alive, if they don't kill the other one off during the scouring, I would bring them back as well. And whether their loyalist or traitor is as up in the air as it ever is, because I think it's more fun that way. And then, yeah, basically it becomes Primarch fights are the focus of every edition now. And it is whatever Primarch versus whatever Primarch. Korax is basically the hunter. He's hunting his brothers. You can have an edition where the focus is on Guilliman fighting, where the focus is Vulcan versus Perturabo. You have an edition where the focus is the Lion versus Mortarion. An edition where the focus is the Khan versus Fulgrim. And you just zoom in on various conflicts between the Primarchs, and occasionally Tyranids getting, and occasionally another faction gets involved in there. And that's what you do with it after that. And you can carry that on until the heat death of the universe, probably, and people will never get sick of it. Or at least the 40k fans will never get sick of it. I would never get sick of seeing different Primarch matchups. As long as there's a matchup that hadn't happened, that could keep going indefinitely. So, yeah. This actually didn't end up being an hour long. It didn't spend nearly as long talking as I thought I would. I thought I had way more in my head than I did, apparently. In terms of what happens after that, well, we get into end times. Because, let's be real, once all the Primarchs are back, you start killing Primarchs. The next step is starting to kill characters. Calgar dies, Azrael dies, Grimnor would die, Helbrecht dies, eventually Dante, Gabriel Seth would die. You know, that's where you head after that. And that is another video in and of itself. That is probably, once again, going to be near 30 minutes long, because this is getting close. So yeah. That also covered quite a few other shit. I will just mention Mortarion. Him and the Death Guard fuck up the Tau. That's what they do. And Magnus fights the Grey Knights and would eventually clash with Lehman. Meet and fight Lehman Russ. He would also at some point clash with Vulcan, but that's another story, maybe. Yeah, that's what I do. And Angron fucks up Ultramar for a while, wanders off the fuck up of her shit, and basically he is now doing what Korax is doing, but on the other end. He is hunting his brothers. He wants to kill his loyal brother because he thinks they're the only ones who can give him a real fight. And maybe one of them can kill him permanently. That's his mindset at this point. He wants nothing more than to die. But he can't, and that's why he's pissed. Constantly. So yeah, that's what's happening. That's what would be happening if I was in charge. Mind you, this is over the course of several editions. And years. So Don't get it twisted. We're talking like additions away by this point. So, yeah. That's it. I'm done. We're now 25 minutes. Ta-ta.